week 15 of the fantasy baseball season. And here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first guy, Bryson Stott of the Philadelphia Phillies. So Bryson Stott, he's been solid this season for the most part for the Philadelphia Phillies. But right now, I think he's playing over his head for this Philadelphia Philly team. And the numbers a little far-fetched, in my opinion, here for Stott this season. So right now, well, he's been on a hot streak over the last couple months. I think you can get a good starting pitcher in the deal for him. And obviously that he's a second baseman helps as well, where we know second and shortstop are probably the weakest positions in fantasy baseball, where he qualifies at both on the season for Stott. 8 home runs, 35 RBIs, 45 runs scored, 16 stolen bases, a 303 average, and a 340 on base. But over the last 2 weeks here, he's been red hot. 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 10 runs scored, a 389 average, and a 421 on base. So that on base to batting average ratio isn't all great for Stott. And we know he's a free swinger. And eventually I think that's going to catch up to him as well, is Stott, because he's just not drawing deep into counts. He's a free swinger, like I said. And that's where a lot of outs do lead into eventually, is Stott, where you're not just going to keep staying hot, hitting early in the count all the time. And right now we know his specialties stealing bases. So right now, well, he's on a hot streak and hitting for average and stealing bases. This is a perfect time to sell him off this week. July 9th at the Marlins, 2 for 3, a run with a stolen base. July 14th versus the Padres, 1 for 4 with a run. July 15th versus the Padres in a doubleheader, 2 for 5 with 4 runs scored. July 16th versus the Padres, 2 for 5, a homer. And July 18th versus the Brewers, 2 for 4 with an RBI. So right now, playing good baseball is Bryson Stott. He's scoring runs, stealing bases, and hitting for a high average. But I just don't think it keeps up at this point of the season here, where right now he's just on a hot streak and he fizzles out a little bit. So right now, well, he's reached peak value pretty much as Stott. He's a hitter I look to sell this week. The second guy, Josh Naylor of the Cleveland Guardians. So Naylor's had a great season, but he's another player I don't think it's going to keep up at the rate he's been at. Naylor ranked 32 in fantasy baseball in the season. Already 14 home runs, 73 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 38 runs scored, 310 batting average, and a 350 on base. But the last 2 weeks here for Naylor, he's pretty much been a guy that you can't get out. 4 home runs, 13 RBIs, a stolen base, 7 runs scored, a 438 average, and a 471 on base. So right now, Naylor playing great baseball. He's amongst the league leaders in RBIs in the American League. He's Naylor just behind Hayatani this season. So right now, well, he's playing out of this world, but I don't think it's going to keep up. After last season, he was a 250 hitter, and this year to hit 310, I don't know if it keeps up going by his track record, even though he's been hitting the ball great. A lot of good exit velos, over 95 to 100 miles per hour. But right now, like I said, there's not that many threats in that lineup over there for the Guardians. Besides, obviously, Jose Ramirez being the main hitter. Rosario Jimenez pretty decent, but teams are going to start pitching Naylor different, I believe. And this hot streak is going to come to an end. July 14th at the Rangers, 1 for 2, a homer, 2 RBIs. July 15th at the Rangers, 1 for 4. July 16th at the Rangers, 2 for 4, a run. July 17th at the Pirates, 2 for 5, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. And July 18th versus the Pirates in that one, he had a grand slam as Naylor. So right now playing great baseball, but he's just a hitter I don't think keeps it up to these type of numbers. No doubt about it, he can help fantasy teams, and he's not a fluke, but I don't think he's a top 30 player when it's all said and done this season. So right now, well, he's most likely at peak value, especially with 72 RBIs already this season here. He's a sell-high candidate, and you possibly could get a bat and a pitcher in a deal. For Naylor this week, next hitters Whit Merrifield of the Toronto Blue Jays. So Merrifield's had a bounce-back year with the Blue Jays. After the last few seasons, we haven't seen much out of him. After he had a breakout year, a few years with the Royals, but the last 2-3 years, the numbers have dropped off. On the season, 6 home runs, 42 RBIs, 41 runs scored, 19 stolen bases, a 292 average, and a 347 on base. But the last 2 weeks here for Merrifield, the power's been coming up for him, and the batting average has been way up there as well. 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, a stolen base, 9 runs scored, a 371 average, and a 410 on base. I think the power's a little fluky here for Merrifield. Even I know a few seasons ago he did hit over 20 home runs, but last season only hit 11 home runs. And like I said, he's been in a slump a little bit for the last few years as Merrifield, and maybe this is just the player he is. We know stolen bases has always been, obviously, his specialty is Merrifield, but this season, everything else really hasn't been there. But right now, while he's hitting well is Merrifield. He's a perfect sell high guy, and as well, he's a second baseman in outfield and fantasy baseball, so good versatility as well. And second base, we know, is a weak position, and I think you could get a good starter in a deal. July 8th at the Tigers, 0 for 2. July 9th at the Tigers, 2 for 5. July 14th versus the D-backs, 2 for 5, a run, 2 RBIs. July 15th versus the D-backs, 2 for 3, 2 runs, a homer, 2 RBIs. July 16th versus the D-backs, 1 for 3 with 2 runs. And July 18th versus the Padres, 1 for 3 in that one. So right now, Merrifield playing good baseball, ranked 75th on the season, but I think it's a little bit overrated, obviously, the numbers, because of the stolen bases. And like I've said in previous videos, stolen bases this season isn't hard to come by with the rule changes and the bigger bases this year. So right now, while Merrifield's playing good baseball for the first time in a few seasons, where he's a pretty solid fantasy player, this is the time to sell him high, because I just don't see it continuing for the remainder of the season. I look to sell and trade here is Cody Bellinger for the Chicago Cubs. So another street player here is Cody Bellinger. To start the year, got off to a hot start, then he cooled off a little bit, then he was injured for a few weeks, man, and now he's back, and he's been playing great baseball since the end of June. On the season, 12 home runs, 35 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 49 runs scored, a 305 average, and a 360 on base. So drastic change from last season to this season for Cody Bellinger. Last season with only a 210 average and 19 home runs last year, where this year he has 12 home runs in 270 less at-bats this season here is Cody Bellinger. So right now he's playing great baseball, and the last 2 weeks he's the ranked number 1 player in fantasy baseball. 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, 13 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 459 average, and a 512 on base. So right now he's pretty much a hitter no one could get out is Cody Bellinger, and the power's been coming back for him. I know he's adjusted his stance, and he's going back to the things he did a few years ago when he was the MVP as Bellinger. And also, it's a 1-year prove-it deal, so you know he wants to cash in after the season. So right now, Bellinger, he's a player I would try to go out there and sell, because I don't think the numbers are keeping up for him this season. And we've even seen it where he had a couple months here where he was great, and then a couple months he didn't do much. But now, while he's on a hot streak, and like I said, ranked the number 1 player in fantasy baseball, which won't hold up in the last 2 weeks. He's a hitter I would trade this week. So the last few games, July 14th versus the Red Sox, 2 for 4, 2 homers, 2 ribs. July 15th versus Boston, 2 for 4, homer, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored. July 16th versus Boston, 0 for 3. July 17th versus the Nats, 2 for 4, run and a stolen base. And July 18th versus the Nats, 1 for 3. So right now, playing great baseball is Bellinger. He's seeing the ball well. Wrigley Field's definitely helping him with, obviously, the ball carries in the summer over there and the wind blows out. And right now, he's a hitter I would sell high, because I just don't see him keeping this up, and he's at peak value. Fifth and final hitter I look to sell and trade this week here is Justin Turner of the Boston Red Sox. So Justin Turner, in his first season here with the Red Sox, he's having a great year and one of the better players in fantasy baseball, ranked 26th on the season, 14 home runs, 58 RBIs, 59 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 290 average, and a 360 on base. So Turner, you figured in the offseason, he's up there in age at 37 years old. He's signing with the Red Sox, and most likely his best years would be behind him. But this season, the numbers are still on par like they usually are. But right now, I think he's playing a little bit over his head, is Turner. In the last month of the season, he's been on a tear, 4 home runs, 23 RBIs, 19 runs scored, a stolen base, 323 batting average, and a 371 on base. And to go a little further, the last 2 weeks, a homer, 12 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 405 average, and a 442 on base. So right now, playing great baseball is Justin Turner. He's batting second or third usually for this Boston Red Sox team, and he's been hitting the ball great this season. A lot of line drives, a lot of fly balls, and 14 home runs is a solid number for a guy at his age, and to hit 290 on the season is pretty impressive. But with injury concerns and his age, I don't know if he's going to continue the season on this rate, still with about 70 games to go. So right now, while Turner's playing great baseball, and I think you could get a solid starting pitcher in a deal for him, this would be the time to sell him this week. July 9th versus the A's, 1 for 3. July 14th at the Cubs, 1 for 4, homer, 3 RBIs. July 15th at the Cubs, 2 for 4, run and a rib. July 16th at the Cubs, 1 for 3 with a run. And July 17th at the A's, 1 for 4 with a run and 2 RBIs. So Turner playing great baseball. He's showing power this season, showing average. And I would just sell him if the right deal's out there. If you get peak value for him, that's the type of deal you do. But if you get someone who's underperforming and not doing great, and not a huge name. I wouldn't do the trade for Turner. So that's a few hitters I look to sell and trade here in Week 15 of the fantasy baseball season.